Step into a new day. We can rise up from the dust and walk away.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Roll call.
Holt.
Here.
Nikki. Here. Sarah. Here. Phillips. Here. Hensley.
Here.
Bradford.
Here.
Tatum.
Yep.
Jennings.
Here.
Bass.
Here. Thank you. You had emailed to you and in your packet a copy of the minutes from the last meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. I have a motion by Lemmings, second by Holt.
Yep.
To approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving those minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You have a copy of the treasurer's report. Do I hear a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
I have a motion by Tatum, second by Nikki Brown to approve the treasurer's report. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You had emailed to you a copy of the appropriations analysis. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Sarah Brown, second by Justice Holt to approve the appropriations analysis. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Brings us up to the County Road and Equipment Report. I've just breezed through this the last few times, so I get to take a little time tonight. We've completed work on road improvement projects on Cavern, Oakland, Weaver, Casey. That was between the county, only the county part. We stopped at the Clinton city limits, of course, and Porter Road. Blast operations, our preparations are underway at the North Quarry for a 20,000 ton blast. They were up there drilling those holes today, so we should have that blast completed probably this weekend. This blast will feed the projects on Peyton Mountain Road and Archie Road. On Peyton Mountain Road, we knew we were getting a grant for it. We didn't know to what extent. That's going to be quite a good grant. We're going to get a 26-foot wide arch top culvert that's going to allow the stream to flow as is beneath. So it's going to be great for the habitat, great for the environment, protection of a species running into Archie, because that's where the stream ends up going. Great grant from the Arkansas Unpaved Roads program. Work on these projects will begin immediately upon completion of the blast. This will make 80,000 tons blasted and processed so far this year. We're really cranking on producing our own and getting those out on our roads. Work has begun on Lynn Creek Road to repair damage there. We have several projects on the horizon in addition to the two grant projects. Those are Calico Road, Pinewood, and Rex Road, among others. We're working at a fever pitch to complete as much brush work and mowing as possible while the weather is allowing. Graders are running every day, open to close, cleaning ditches and crowning roads and getting those smoothed off. We have continued the labor swap with the Sheriff's Department. The Road Department is servicing the Sheriff's Department's vehicles, and the Sheriff's Department is keeping our lawns looking as good as possible. If you look outside, our yard looks really good. Thank you, Sheriff. The Road Department has invested in technology for the future, and this is where I want to spend some time tonight. Road data is collected from sensors attached to county road vehicles. Through this data and the collection of this data, gone are the days of fixing roads based on who lives on what road, and gone are the days of fixing roads based on how many votes are clustered in a particular location. Road improvements and projects are based on the following. We can get a grant for that road. If there's some qualifier that gets money to put on that road, we'll do that grant project. Data-driven needs, and I'll go into that in just a second. Dividing the work evenly throughout different parts of the county, and the chronic spots and disaster areas that are always washing out or in need of repair. If you look at the colored maps, you'll see the main page of our screen, our data collection screen. Green is an excellent road based on the sensors of vehicles that have traveled that road. Red are rougher roads, and it collects data based on speed, based on the roughness, and it collects that data, and it gives me basically a grade for that road. We can zoom right in and we can find some bad spots without even having to go out and look at the road. If you notice, go down to the south part of the county, down around Damascus in your area, Justice Bradford. You'll see that one little road that has quite a bit of red on it. That's Oak Tree. Tells me we need to improve that next year. You look up toward the northwest part of the county and you'll see Rex Road. Rex Road is pretty rough all the way down to where part of it was chip and sealed. We're going to be doing that later this year. Sometimes, unfortunately, the squeaky wheels get the grease, and then we have a lot of people who would never, ever call my office and let us know that the road needs to be fixed or is rough and needs repaired. This evenly distributes the taxpayers' money in the areas that the work really needs to be done on. That way we're using our taxpayer funds efficiently and fairly. My goal is to get all these roads green, at least yellow. Looking through here, you see a little black arrow on the second page. Those black arrows are where our graders are. Those are GPSed. Someone calls in, they need something done, I can look on the system and tell exactly where our people are and where they're working. You'll notice that the black arrows are at the roads that need to be touched, because we're using this data and we're putting this data to work to make more roads better. One of the best things about this data is that it costs very little, and we've been able to collect more money on the backside than this data costs to operate. It collects data from our equipment when we're doing grant projects. Things that we have forgotten, we've been able to go in and retrieve this data and get more grant funding on the backside. FEMA funds also, and disaster projects. It's paid off in great rewards. You can see that when you look overall, some of the roads that people have come to us and complained about, we've got in really good condition. Some of the roads that no one's ever said a word to us about, like Mountain Parkway or Mountain Park Road over toward Fairfield Bay, we've got to get on that road and do some work. Get that thing drained off and get it to where it'll hold up to a rain. Any discussion or questions?
Have you collected data on how often roads travel?
That we have sensors hooked up to some vehicles, and all we have to do is go out and drive that road.
No, how often is that road used? How many people use that road?
Mountain Park?
No, just roads in general. Do you have any kind of data input besides what you?
I don't have any kind of traffic counts or anything
I didn't
like
know
that.
if we had counters, you see the state doing that.
Right.
I didn't know if that kind of information is available from them or.
Right. I could probably get some traffic count data from them, but, it'd be on the state roads.
Right.
So I don't know how much use that would be to us. One of the things we noticed is you can look on these maps, a lot of our gravel roads are smoother and in better shape than a lot of our sealed roads.
Yeah.
And we can maintain them and keep them smoother a lot more efficiently and less expensively than we can maintain a chip road. So, interesting stuff. Anything else? Thank you, guys. Sheriff's report.
I want to point out a couple of things here on the patrol activity log. As you notice there through the months of this year, the numbers obviously were still up in March. That's kind of when we got into the pandemic. Slowly went down. Now they're spiking back up. People are getting released to go back to businesses and things like that the last month or so. So our numbers are going up. So, our guys are staying busy. we're still a little bit short-handed. We've had a deputy injured and not exactly sure what the end status there is gonna be, so, if people are needing their guys, they're responding efficiently and as swiftly as they can. I was looking earlier today on our criminal investigation division, and their numbers have stayed pretty solid throughout this whole thing. It's, criminal activity doesn't stop just because we got to wear a mask or we got to stay at home or we get released to go to the businesses. So those guys are really staying busy. So any information from our general public, we would be greatly appreciative of. Suspicious activity, people in areas that they don't normally frequent, things of that nature. We take all of our calls and pass it on to our deputies or to CID, and they act on it. So any information from our public, our general public, our citizens is greatly appreciated. We don't have enough eyes to see everybody, but they're going to see a lot of things that we don't. So just call our office and help us in that way. Has anybody got any question on our patrol activity stuff? Any other questions?
I have a question here. I received first me back up. How many feds do we currently have?
13, I believe, currently is what I've seen on there earlier. Yeah, 13.
I also received a call today, a long call, where an individual is concerned about I guess you'd say, the food budget at the jail and what we feed the inmates. I just want to see if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
I can. Fortunately, we've had this question before, and I believe we've provided some information to Justice Brown, and we've had a few calls about it from some of our federal inmates, significant others, or family members, and things of that nature. And what we're seeing is, obviously, in our budget, we did not budget for beef to go from $2 a pound to $8 a pound. That would be like budgeting your fuel to go from $2 a gallon to $8 a gallon. Nobody foreseen that. But with the donations, we've had donations from Dollar General, Miss Burrell out of Quitman, Miss Shepherd from the Church of Christ, which we have. What we've done with that is we've been supplementing 1 or 2 different meals a week. That way that we can carry this out for a longer period of time instead of eating it all in 1 or 2 weeks and then going right back to our basic beans and cornbread, and that fits our calorie count and it fits our budget at this point in time. So with that, we also started a garden this year. So right now we just recently last week started pulling off squash and cucumbers and tomatoes, and we've got some other stuff that's coming on that just hadn't produced yet, but we're also infiltrating that into our meals and different things. My assistant Deb, she's monitoring our budget every week, and we have a set amount of what we're going to allow ourselves to spend for the remainder of the year. So that one of our sources that we have had in the past was Tyson Chicken. We've contacted them. As you all know, the schools have been out for some time. Now they're out for summer. But our schools have continued to feed kids while they've been at home, and Tyson Chicken has donated most of their food to our children. I agree with that. I'm appreciative of them taking care of our kids. So, that's where some of our donations that we normally get, we're not getting now from Tyson Chicken because of they're helping our schools. I can't argue with that. We've reached out to Riceland, Bush Beans, George's Chicken, and we're always constantly checking different avenues to try to source our food for our inmates. Another thing I want to cover is, with that, is from Mike Rainwater, who helps and supports our AAC, or Risk Management Group, through their book for the jail law. The minimum daily calorie count for an unactive inmate is 2,300 calories, which is all of our inmates except for our 4 309s. And they are subject to be at 2,700 calories because they work, they go out and mow, and they keep up our grounds, and they cook the meals, and they do work on different things, so maintenance around the building. So at 2,300 calories, we send that to our dietitian, which is in Harrison. She certifies our meal, which at this point in time, our meals consist of, in the mornings, they get oatmeal, toast, and milk. They get bologna, chips, bread, and cookies with tea for lunch. And they get beans, cornbread, rice, cookies, and water for supper. That's if we're not supplementing with some of our donated foods. And when we do that, they may get, trying to remember some of the things that they get. Some of it is chicken, fruit, potatoes, pizza, Salisbury steak, other various things that we can divide out in between all of them. In our total count on our meals, coming from our dietitian
Hey,
is...
Sheriff,
Yes.
I just got a message from out in the field, because
Uh-huh.
we're live streaming, if we can
Yes.
speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our total calorie count right now on our meals that has been certified by our dietitian is 2,440 calories. That's what we're feeding right now, barring the donated food that we supplement. And obviously, that's going to take your calorie count higher. So I think we're doing a very efficient job in that. Our budget is still setting where we're going to be able to continue to the end of the year. I am most welcoming to anybody that wants to donate to help us to feed our inmates. We, before this pandemic that come about, we were feeding them beef, we were feeding them burritos, we had them spaghetti, we were doing chili, we were doing beef soup, vegetable beef soup. I mean, we had a lot of variety. But with all this coming down, and obviously our financial distress, we had to back off of that and kind of go back to where reality set in, and we had to just calm that down. And obviously, we can't buy beef right now with our budget. So I think we're doing a very efficient job, and Deb does our food ordering, and my assistant, and we by no means want to keep anything from our inmates. I want them to eat well. So that's where we're at on that.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you. Elected officials, do you have anything to present to the court? Court, do you have any questions for our elected officials?
Can you explain this second page on the fund balances for total loss because of COVID-19?
What are you looking at?
You looking at the color page?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just went in and just generated the numbers from what we received last year and what we received this year. As you can see, there's 4. 3 of them is actually from the road. The general turnback is what we've lost on county general. The rest of them, if y'all look at them, the May and June, there's some of them that are lower, but we had, like, April was a little bit higher, so they balanced out. So this is just the general total of what has come in on the items that they told us that we were looking to lose money on.
We're expecting to pick this up in July and August, September, maybe?
As far as the sales tax and stuff, it just depends on how people spend. We won't know till we get that money in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for any elected officials? Jonathan Jackson has to speak to us tonight, so Jonathan, the floor is yours.
I had just a couple things about the hospital tax that y'all are wanting to put on the ballot, or I guess already going to put on the ballot. And my understanding, I know it's a little lower than the previous one and everything, but there was really no numbers from the hospital of how much they needed besides, hey, we want this percentage, or what they were going to spend it on besides just maintenance and maybe a new MRI machine, something like that. And I feel like we need to have a little more communication on what that tax is actually going to cover. Because I tried to look at data on what the hospital collects. I couldn't track any of that down. But I do know they charge a lot for their services. If you're unlucky like me and have a high deductible and have had the, I don't know if you'll call it the pleasure of, going to the hospital a few times, you'll know how expensive it is to use any of their services. So I'm wondering, whereas the county does have to provide a certain amount to the hospital, if we could get some real numbers on seeing what they need versus just, hey, we need this percentage, especially in this economy when we're having trouble getting the tax revenue that we need just to operate on a daily basis. I kind of feel like, the county needs a little more communication on to, what's our money going to go for? Because I know sales tax comes in from people traveling through, but everyone here in the county does like to spend money in the county. So it's going to affect the entire county. And I'm just wondering how much are we really paying for the hospital to just get new equipment that they may or may not need, when we've got other things in the county that might need the money worse, like the food at the jail or, roads or just general things, because I know it's kind of been a crazy year, and I think, I know there's been several people I've talked to in the county. I talked to Virgil about it, before the last meeting, but I wasn't able to make it to kind of voice my opinion. But it seems just like, they're coming back asking for more since we've already said, no, we can't, we've already voted on it once, and now they're coming back again without really any more information, just saying, hey, we need money, which seems to be a few things I've seen this year. People like, oh, we spent the money and we need more, and we just give them money. And I don't get to do that. Most people in the county don't get to do that. So I feel like, we need a little more communication from the hospital. If they really need the money, tell us, your budget. How are you, spending your money? How are you spending that tax money? And what they really need, or is it just a little bit much right now to ask for? And that's kind of all I wanted to say. Is just maybe we need to think about these things a little bit more than just, oh, they need money, let's give them money. Because especially with all the health issues this year, I feel a lot of people might just vote their emotions, and we're going to have a higher tax rate when all this is over. We're going to say, well, now we're paying a lot of money to the hospital, and what do we get out of it? It's just my thoughts on it. So
Appreciate you sharing those thoughts, and it's always good to hear from the community, to know what the community is thinking. And the burden is certainly on the hospital now at this point to make a clear and compelling case to the electorate if they want that tax passed. So I will make sure that the hospital receives this and see what we can get done.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say too on that, because the same thing we discussed that today, was it was very clear when this was voted on last month, that it was up to them, and we encouraged them. I've encouraged them again today to have some open forums. They can have them at the fire departments, they can have them whatever, but because there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and it's definitely going to be on to them. Of course, it'll be up to the public, you know, the people of the county, but it's definitely going to be on them to put that case out there. And there's a lot of questions that needs to be answered, because I have a lot of questions as well. But that just to let you know, we have been encouraging them to have an open forum where people can ask questions and get the answers that they need.
Well, I know I found one page on certain charges, you know, and I know they did reference possibly an MRI machine, how expensive they are, and I deal with a lot of expensive equipment, and it's all going up, so I understand, but they do charge, if you look at their, you know, charge list, anywhere from $900 to $4,500 for one single MRI, and that's not any of the other charges related to it. So I would think if they're using that thing a couple times a week, they could probably pay for it pretty quick if they're doing that. But, you know, I do understand there's other costs involved, but it just seems like, you know, to just throw a number out and say we need a certain percentage to operate our hospital, I think they should be able to at least give us a little better idea. I agree.
I appreciate your feedback too, I'm with Brian. I think that people have a lot of questions, and we kind of hashed that out, that we didn't want to stand in the way of that being on a ballot, and giving everybody the opportunity to vote on that, especially with the hospital. I mean, you know, some of the things I said is how important a hospital is. If you're going to move here, we're going to think about hospital, schools, especially with it being our biggest employer. But we all know, and we're learning more all the time, you got to make sure you're operating in your budget. All your questions are good questions. And again, in speaking with Mr. Deaton, I think a lot of us have voiced it's going to be important. Education is just going to be important. And we learned that on this last tax bill too. Clarification and questions. And I think the more questions ask the better. And, you know, I think it's important to ask questions. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I would like to see the forums too. Brian has even mentioned that they could do them at the fire departments and things like that. So hopefully that will happen.
Thank you. Any other discussion? That brings us up to our new business, and our first ordinance will be read by Justice Hensley, and we'll ask please if you'll speak up.
All right. Van Buren County Quorum Court Ordinance Number 2020 being enacted by the Quorum Court of the County of Van Buren, State of Arkansas, the appropriation ordinance to be entitled an appropriation ordinance to amend the original appropriation ordinance number 2019-55, the annual operating budget for 2020 to increase the projected revenue and appropriate $388.22 into the county general number 1,418/2009 for the detention center. Whereas the detention center has received reimbursement for hygiene packs sold to the inmates, and whereas this money needs to be appropriated into the line item number 2009 inmate supplies. Now, therefore it be ordained that the Quorum Court of Van Buren County, Arkansas, that the original appropriation ordinance number 2019-55 be amended, and number 2, $388.22 be appropriated into the county general number 1000-418-2009 inmate supplies.
Do I hear a motion to adopt this? Make a motion to adopt it. Okay, it's been motioned by Justice Holmes, second by, who's second? Brian Tatum. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Holt.
Yes.
Nikki.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
Hensley.
Yes.
Bradford.
Yes.
Tatum.
Yes.
Fleming.
Yes.
Bass.
Yes.
2019.
Thank you. Our next ordinance will be read by Justice Phillips.
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court of the County of Van Buren, State of Arkansas, an appropriation ordinance to be entitled, an appropriation ordinance to amend the original appropriation ordinance number 2019-55, the annual operating budget for 2020, to increase the projected revenue and appropriate $200 into County General number 1000-800-2001 for the Veterans Service Office. Whereas the Veterans Service Office is running short of funds and is in need of supplies, and whereas ink cartridges are ordered for the office and will need to be paid. Now therefore be it ordained by the Quorum Court of Van Buren County, Arkansas, that number 1, the original appropriation ordinance number 2019-55 be amended, and number 2, $200 be appropriated into County General's number 1000-800-2001 general supplies. I move we adopt this ordinance.
Okay. It's been motioned by Phillips and second by Holt to adopt this ordinance. Any discussion?
Do they have a budget?
They do have a budget. A very, very, very small budget.
They're running low on the budget.
They are in that line, yes.
What do they provide? What services do they?
They provide hearing aids. I'm not sure exactly what all they do provide. I know I went in there and got Dad hooked up on some stuff before he passed.
Yeah, Veteran Service Office, they provide anything that veterans need, any kind of legal advice, any kind of advice. If, for instance, there are certain grant type things out there from the VA that veterans can get, and especially for in-home health care and stuff like that. The guy is, he's really working hard. He's working on a project with my father-in-law right now.
What's his name?
It's Peroni.
Peroni, yeah. He's a nice gentleman, and he works a lot, and he's had a lot of people in there this year.
No, he has.
Certainly has. So he really is helping out the veterans.
Good discussion. Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Holt,
Yes.
Nikki,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
Hensley,
Yes.
Bradford,
Yes.
Tatum.
Yes.
Jennings.
Yes.
Bass.
Yes.
2020-20.
Next on the agenda is an ordinance that no one has yet to sponsor. Does anyone want to jump in and sponsor that at the 11th hour? If not, I have a little bit of discussion by one of our justices on this. Nikki, the floor is yours.
Okay. I just want to speak a little bit to this ordinance. When I was approached about sponsoring it, I dug a little into it and had some conversations with David Emmerling today. He is actually stepping into the position of the president of the library board. Just for clarification, the library board is a voluntary board that represents the library. And in talking to them, and I had some conversations with Dale, really the reason that they proposed this is, as we all know, it was on the ballot, it was voted down. But the situation has not changed as far as the building, okay? The building that they are in, the payment is $330,000.
Can I interrupt you
Yeah.
for just a second? I'm sorry. Since we are live streaming, does somebody mind to just fill the public in as to what we're talking about, because they don't have this paper?
Okay, they don't have this paper. Okay.
If you don't mind.
Okay, and I'm not the expert on this one because
Yeah,
I didn't
just
sponsor it,
general
but yeah.
idea.
Okay, so the library has proposed a 1/4 cent sales tax to be put on the general election in November. That's what this ordinance is. Asking for a 1/4 cent sales tax in the general election. This was proposed and sent out. There were no sponsors for it. When I was asked to sponsor it, I dug in a little bit more. As you all know, I've worked with the library. As you all know, it was on the ballot, it failed. So we are still where we were before. So last budget time, they revised their budget. Their operations are working within that millage, but we still have this issue of this building that we have to pay for, okay? And just some things I want to say about it. Obviously, no one's sponsored this, and after speaking to them, my understanding let me step back. I talked to Dale on the phone, and there are some developments that are positive developments. So one, we're still looking at refinancing. We had hoped to get a bond issue, but COVID happened, and that was going to be our way of refinancing, but that hasn't exactly panned out. So again, we're working with a local bank. I think we're optimistic that there may be a way that we can refinance this and get that payment down. The other thing is the hospital is actually paid off, so they have that tax. There's going to be some excess there. There was actually some excess, I guess, that had to be paid in the beginning. Dale, you correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, because I'm coming into the 11th hour. And then actually, because it paid off a little bit early, there's going to be a little excess there. Okay, so that'll be a little bit more in the general budget. So basically, knowing that information, I called David Emerly as the new library board president and said, hey, I'm kind of surprised about this tax being introduced. We kind of just went through it, and I don't know how much support it's going to get. But I think we have some good developments that, and basically what the library board is saying is, we just want you to know we don't know how we're going to make this building payment. I mean, we're operating on our millage as far as that, but this building, and I've said it before, is a county building. If we don't make this payment, it's going to affect our bond rating. So if we want to do anything else, it will affect us. So as we go into budget, as we have different things come up, it is something that we need to be aware of. We need to be thinking about. I think, obviously, based on no one sponsoring it, I don't think that we thought we needed to take it as a tax to the people. But I think we do have to think about what we're going to do at budget time, because that payment is due January 1st, and it's due by the county. And so I was encouraged after talking to Dale about maybe we were moving closer on either refinancing or some of that excess. I don't say excess because we don't know, we don't have excess. Not that it would be paid directly as a lump sum on the library, but that could be budgeted as a substitute to that payment for the building. Okay, so I'm not talking about operating costs, I'm talking about for the county building. And so that is, I communicated that to them, that I was not comfortable sponsoring for a tax to be added, and I don't think that there was anyone else that was willing to sponsor it. So they understood that completely. The reason that they said that they wanted to do it was, it wouldn't be an additional cost, and they're just kind of at the end of the rope on what to do to make this payment. They're a voluntary board, and ultimately the building is approved through us, paid through the county.
So personally, are you finished?
I'm finished, yes.
Personally, I have done some research as well, and I've spoken with the judge, and the library has a millage that was put into place over 50 years ago that can only be spent on the library. So what I have always wanted since this issue had come up was for that millage to pay off the library. Of course, I run a kindergarten readiness program. We use the library. One of our parent meetings, we go to the library and get the kids their library cards, as soon as they're able to get them. So I'm a big proponent of the library, but since that millage can only be used for the library, I felt that that's what we should be using it for, rather than an additional tax taking more money out of the citizens' pockets. So Dale's also got some things he's going to say that will also provide other avenues, but it was my hope that we could pay it off with that millage since it's solely for the library.
We have a plan A, B, and C. Plan A, of course, is we're still trying to get a restructure on the bond. Well, if that fails, we're going to have some funds coming that we don't normally have, and we can bank those funds and subsidize the library going forward as needed. We can look at their annual budget, what they actually have coming in, look at what they can afford, and go ahead and let them pay what they can afford, subsidize the difference because it is a county-owned facility. County needs to honor its debt and its debt commitment. We signed on the dotted line. We are going to have the means to be able to do that going forward without asking for another tax. And it's optimistic. I think it's a good day for the county when we can finally say that we can breathe a little bit easier about the library, because we may have other building needs soon, who knows? But we need to keep our bond rating intact so we can entertain other needs as they arise. We lose our bond rating and we're dead for a while until we build our bond rating back.
And I just want to say one other thing, just to clarify, because this is a question that's been asked a lot, and I think there's some confusion. And I can understand, and we went through these thought exercises, all of us, I think, is the way that the library is structured. It's not an option to say, okay, well, let's move the library somewhere else and move X into that building. The library has to be used as a library. So I get that question a lot. Could we use that, move the library, use that building for something else that could fund it? But as long as that building is owed on, it can't be used for anything else. So your options are, it's a library and you pay $330,000 on that payment, or it's a closed building and you pay $330,000 on that payment. So that's one thing that I get a lot. So and then again, to the bond rating, when we talk about, I agree with you, we talk about building infrastructure here and doing things, we've got to protect that bond rating. So.
Is the $1 mil tax that we currently collect, is that sufficient for the operation?
That is, so they significantly cut their budget at budget time last year. I don't want to say a number and be wrong, but I'm thinking it's around 30%, and it got it to operate in the millage. So, originally, we can go through all that again, but, the millage was bringing in enough to cover both that payment and the operations. Assessments went down, but the current millage can fund the operations. It just cannot fund that payment, the building payment.
Can't fund both in its entirety.
Now,
The library will be able to fund part of it.
part of it, yes.
And
So
then
part
we get,
of the millage can be used for the building payment, and then part of it can be used for operations.
regardless of how it's chopped up or what part goes through what, the entirety of the millage will be spent on the library.
Right.
Whether it's
It has
for,
to be.
right, it has to be. Whether it's for the actual building or whether it's for the operations. Now, the way the millage is designed, it's set up for maintenance and operations. Maintenance and operations can be used for a lease, it can't be used for a building payment. That's why White River Planning and Development's involved. We're actually leasing them the property from White River, and it's kind of a legal knot. And it'll work until we get it paid off. Hopefully we can get it paid off soon and look back and just breathe easier.
Is the library gonna be able to make this payment this year, January? Have you predicted that, forecasted?
No, what, this is what they're saying is, no, I don't.
Well, you wouldn't go to court. This tax, you wouldn't get no revenue off that then when? Like 90 days.
Correct.
Payment off that anyway.
Right, and again, I think that's why.
It wasn't an answer,
I agree it wasn't an answer. Yeah, that's why I don't think it got, I didn't sponsor it and no one sponsored it. I think, again, though, what this board, and they've been saying it since they brought it up with the other tax, we're not gonna be able to make this payment. That was when it was on the tax last time is what they were saying. It didn't pass, so they're still saying that.
And am I wrong in saying that this would generate like $500,000 a year?
$250,000 at 10 years would be about $500,000.
So.
Yeah. Or well, it'd be
and
$5
then-
million over 10 years, yeah.
So $500,000 a year, and then the additional 330, so 800, close to.
Yes.
Lisa, do you know when the library is gonna open up again?
We are open for parking lot services. We stay, we're actually have more hours right now We're open 6 days a week, 8 hours a day for parking lot service, and we make copies, we send faxes. We're pretty quick on running, grabbing those books that you know that you want. We do have an online catalog, we have an app, and you can see what's actually on the shelf, and we work as quick as we can to get it right out to you. This cuts down a lot on cleaning supplies, and the fact that, you tell somebody they can only be in here so much, it's hard to be confrontational. Say, you've been here 30 minutes, you really need to get out, because for public facilities, people want to come and stay in the library. And it's just not really feasible in this environment at this time. And but we're there Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5.
Any other discussion? Thank you. Our next item of business is the transfers. I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules, to dispense with the audible reading of the transfers, and to accept a couple of others that were added. Motion by Sarah Brown, second by Justice Phillips, to dispense with the rules, or to suspend the rules, to dispense with audible readings, and to entertain some additional transfers. Any discussion on suspension? Roll call vote for suspension.
Holt,
Yes.
Easy,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Hensley,
Yes.
Bradford,
Yes.
Tatum,
Yep.
Lemmings,
Yes.
Bass.
Thank you. A lot of these are county roads. This is coming out of transfers out. That line item was put in there and funded for this purpose, just to transfer funds out and to appropriate into the proper line items as needed. Any discussion? Okay. Any other discussion or questions? Do I hear a motion to entertain the transfer, to accept the transfers?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Holt, second by Phillips to approve the transfers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, before we close, I'd like to cover a couple of topics really quickly. First of all, we had some major developments today as far as the state and COVID-19. Starting Monday, if you can't socially distance, you're 6 feet, you have to be wearing a mask at any public place. Just go online, it's all over the place. Find the exact directives. I'm very proud of Van Buren County. We still only have one active case right now. If we can get down to 0 active cases for 28 consecutive days, we are going to be exempt from the mask requirement. So there is no reason why we can't be among the first of the counties to get there. So I'd love to pioneer that. Also, we have a new facility that's open. It hasn't grand opened yet, and it's not completely furnished, but it's the Children's Advocacy Alliance. And Carol Cruz could speak to this better than me, but it's going to provide a lot of tools for them to be able to put people away who are doing horrible, horrible things to our children. And unfortunately, this is a reality in our community that children are being abused physically and sexually. I understand that 85 to 90% of the abuse out of Van Buren County is sexual in nature. I hate, loathe, and detest that we need this, but I absolutely love that we have this to help protect our children and help them through this path, and hopefully give them a more productive adulthood when they get through this. So Carol, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but would you care to speak to this a little bit?
Sure. This is a great thing for Van Buren County. We're so excited. The Advocacy Center is really the first stop for a victim, a child victim of, like the judge said, sexual or physical abuse. It's the way the sheriff and I and the chief of police that we are able to build cases that we can prosecute in court. A lot of things go on at the Advocacy Center, but two really important, just from my perspective, is that they have interviewers who are trained specifically to interview children who are victims. And so you can imagine how different that should be in dealing with a child, both in making sure that leading questions aren't asked, and that we get to the bottom of what happened without kind of maybe even inadvertently putting some biases or anything in there. And so those interviews are what we rely on to file charges often. And those interviewers are trained to work with the children and to get to the truth and to also help the children through that process. And the second thing that's going to happen is that there's equipment and a room in place to conduct the sexual assault examinations. That's something that Van Buren County desperately needs, because in the past, victims have had to go very far away in order to have those examinations. Those aren't examinations that any normal physician or nurse is trained to perform. The equipment is very expensive, and so this is a really big deal that now, instead of being told, oh, you got to go to Little Rock, or there's one in Mountain Home or something like that, just to have one here in town, I think it's going to mean that more of these kids get the examination they need, and sometimes we're able to prosecute a child molester really based on that exam. So we're so excited about it, and I'm bummed that we haven't had open house or anything to show it off to the community because of COVID, but we're really excited about it, and it's going to be huge in order to put some of these people behind bars.
Go on my Facebook page, I put a picture of the handprint of the first child that went through there and went through the interview process. And look at the size of the handprint compared to the grains of the canvas that the child put their hands on. It's heartbreaking that we have children this young who are victims of sexual abuse. And I don't know how the people maintain themselves mentally to be able to put themselves in this line of work day in and day out. But I'm so proud that they're willing to do that. And I'm really, really proud of people like Carol, people like Chad, our prosecutors, who take care of the people who do this to our kids. Van Buren County is a great place for a lot of people and a lot of things, but dadgummit, it's not the place to abuse our children. Do that to our children, you're going behind bars, period. We're going to make sure that we can provide the evidence that we need to get you locked up.
Is this a state thing? I mean, the children's advocacy deal, how are they getting paid? The doctors and the nurses or whoever?
Yeah, they're on a contract. There are doctors that work with them and train them. My understanding is that there will be a nurse, and it's a specific certification. It's called a SANE nurse, sexual assault nurse examiner. For a while, we had rotation even in Faulkner County that has been coming up here some, but that's a nurse on a state contract. Yeah, they are fantastic because they're trained not only to do the examinations, they do such a good job in court explaining to the jurors what their exam is and what that looks like. And I'll tell you what, it's a really tough thing for the kids to go through just to have that examination itself, but it is such a important part of being able to prosecute those people.
Thank
Brave
you for what
kids.
you do
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you.
to do that.
Judge, may I add to that?
Absolutely.
Also, in line with the same thing we're talking about here, we've got an investigator Matt Meinke, got involved with a drug task force. I'm sorry, I'm used to drug task force, I was there, but he's on the task force working with child advocacy. So in that means that we're in the process of getting some new equipment and things so we can download evidence off of these computer devices and your phone, cell phones, tablets, things like that, so that we're not having to extend the period of time of getting our prosecutor Cruz's evidence to her, because we usually have to carry this stuff to a bigger department. Conway PD has been so kind to let us use their Silbright and things like that, where we can dump cell phones and things like that to see where these predators are at. So he has joined that task force, so our investigators can actually do it right here at home. Now, one other thing for the Advocacy Center is it's set up, and I want the public to know that don't hesitate to reach out to it. We have it set up to where you can go in and the victim doesn't have to look at this big bad burly cop. The victim gets to go in and sit with these professionally trained interviewers, and we get to extract the evidence out of sight. And so that makes that victim a lot more comfortable, so that we're not, it doesn't look like we're there in uniform to make them or lead them on into anything. So it makes it a lot more comfortable for our victim. Unfortunately, we have this problem, but we're gonna get the equipment, and we've got the capability of doing it better, doing it faster, which puts our criminals in jail, is where they need to be. So, and then eventually we're gonna send them to prison for a long time. That's what I want to add to it.
Thank you.
Where is this located?
It's on the very northern wing of the North Annex. Built a wall, it's private, it's locked off, can't see in it. There's a glass front for the office, but the children get all the privacy they need.
And we could also bring our courthouse dog up from Buren County. She's been up for Van Buren County and Searcy County several times. But if the interviewers know that if they have a young victim who they think would really benefit from having the courthouse dog come and sit with the victim during the interview, and even in court, but specifically in the interview, then she gets in the car and drives up from Buren County too. So
That's great.
it's pretty cool.
And you know, another part, this is all about the child and the child's well-being, and getting the difficult situation away from the child. It's not so much about disrupting the child's life, and it's certainly not about putting the child back through a horrific experience just to gather evidence, because the interviewer has the authority to completely stop the interview if it's too difficult on the child, and if it's going to cause some more damage to the child. So I think that's one of the best things about Children's Advocacy Alliance, is it's all about the kid and their well-being. So I'm proud of it. I'm proud they're here. Any other discussion? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Let's adjourn.
A motion and second. Anyone opposed?
Step into a new